Have you ever felt watched by something that isn't there, but swears it used to be? Something left behind, buried under years of silence, yet still breathing in the walls, in the floorboards, waiting for someone to listen? That's how it began for Mason, a high school dropout trying to get his life together, when he took a part-time job cataloging archives for the Pine Grove Historical Society. Pine Grove, Iowa, a place most people only pass through. One diner, one gas station, and a lot of nothing in between. But it has one story that never dies. The story of the old schoolhouse that burned down in 1962. Locals say you can still hear children crying in the wind when you drive past it at night. No one talks about it loud, but everyone knows it. A fire that swallowed 11 kids and their teacher, Miss Ivers, just weeks before summer break. No one ever found out what caused it. Some say it started in the boiler. Others whisper about Miss Ivers locking the doors from the inside. Mason didn't care about ghost stories. He cared about the $12 an hour scanning old newspapers and sorting black and white photos into dusty boxes. That's how he found it, buried in a folder labeled PGPS 1962. A photo of the schoolhouse, taken 2 weeks before the fire. Kids in uniform lined up for a class photo, all of them smiling except one. A girl in the second row, eyes wide open like she'd seen something coming, scribbled in pen on the back. June 3rd, last picture taken. He thought it was strange, but not scary. Not yet. The deeper he went, the weirder it got. Local newspapers from 1962 had reported anomalous electrical surges the week before the fire. Lights flickering on and off, phones ringing with no one on the other end. One article mentioned a janitor quitting 2 days before the incident, claiming he saw Miss Ivers talking to the furnace. Mason laughed when he read it. Furnace talk? Probably someone just trying to get out of work, until he found the tape. It was unmarked, just sitting at the bottom of the box under a pile of PTA newsletters. Reel to reel. He had to use the society's ancient player to hear it. Static. Then a voice, soft at first. A woman. Calm, rhythmic, like she was reading a lullaby. But the words weren't right. They were in some kind of chant. Then children's laughter, then screaming. Mason slammed the stop button. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning he returned to the archive room. The tape was gone. He thought maybe someone took it. Maybe he imagined it. But when he looked at the photo again, the girl's eyes seemed wider than before. Her face somehow sharper, clearer. He compared it to the scan he made. The scan was blurry. The original was crisp. That didn't make sense. Old photos fade. They don't develop on their own. Something was wrong. He decided to visit the site, just once, just to shake it off. The old schoolhouse still stood, barely, half buried in weeds at the edge of town, off a road no one paved anymore. Charred beams, roof half caved in, windows shattered but frames still intact, like open mouths caught mid-scream. He stepped inside with his phone flashlight. Dust everywhere, and a cold that didn't belong to October. Inside the main room, the blackboard was still there. Faint chalk marks visible, numbers, letters, like someone had been doing arithmetic. Mason stood staring at it when the door slammed behind him. He spun around. No one. He tried to open the door. It wouldn't budge. Then the room got darker. Not like the sun went behind clouds, like something thick was pressing into the light. Then, footsteps. Tiny ones, like children walking in circles behind him. Then a whisper, right in his ear. Miss Ivers is still teaching? Mason screamed, kicked the door until it burst open. He ran back to town covered in dust, blood on his palm from a splinter he never felt. He told himself he was done. But that night he dreamed of fire, of 11 children standing in a circle around him. One girl with wide eyes whispering a name over and over. Nora, Nora, Nora. That wasn't the name on the back of the photo. There were no names, no list of victims ever confirmed. The next day, Mason went back to the Historical Society. He needed answers. That's when he found the sealed letter. Postmarked June 5th, 1962. Addressed to whoever dares to open what should have stayed closed. He opened it. Inside was a map of the schoolhouse layout and a note scribbled in the margins. The fire didn't start, it was summoned. The map showed more than just classrooms. Beneath the faded lines and hand-sketched walls was something Mason didn't expect, a staircase that led underground, labeled simply, lower room. No records ever mentioned a basement, no floor plans had this, yet the handwriting matched the teacher logs from 1962, the ones signed by Miss Ivers. He scanned the map into his phone and left the Historical Society without telling anyone. If he did, they'd think he was losing it. Maybe he was, but that whisper still echoed in his ear. Miss Ivers is still teaching. And in his dreams, that wide-eyed girl, Nora, kept repeating the same thing. We never left. Back at the ruins, the air was heavier, like the school knew he was coming. He followed the map step by step. The hall that once held lockers was nothing but blackened walls now, but he found what he was looking for, a metal hatch under broken floorboards. He cleared the debris. It was locked but rusted through. One kick, and it gave way. A set of narrow stairs descended into darkness. He switched on his flashlight and climbed down. The lower room was real. It smelled like mold and old ashes. The walls were lined with shelves filled with melted books, broken toys, and rows of tiny shoes, pairs lined up perfectly, untouched by time. In the center was a circle made of burned desks, arranged ritual-like, charred but solid, and in the middle sat a single chair, facing the far wall where something was painted in black soot. Knowledge is sacrifice. As Mason stepped into the circle, a freezing wind whooshed through, though there were no windows. His flashlight flickered, then voices, children again, laughing, chanting, then one voice louder than the rest, a woman's, stern, patient. Everyone, eyes forward. Mason turned, heart hammering. At the edge of the room stood Miss Ivers. She looked exactly like her photo from 1962. Her clothes, her hair pinned up, even the chalk still in her hand. But her face wasn't right. The eyes were too deep, black like burned paper. Her smile didn't touch her eyes. She looked at him like she recognized him. You're late, she said. Mason couldn't move. You were meant to sit with us in 1962, but you ran. Now you've come back. I wasn't even born, he choked out. She stepped forward. Her feet didn't touch the ground. But she was. Miss Ivers pointed behind him. Mason turned, and there stood Nora. Not the photo version. This Nora looked half alive, her skin pale and flaking like old film, but her eyes just as wide. She held something in her hands, the tape recorder, pressed play. The chanting started again. But now Mason could understand the words. We open the door, we light the flame, we offer one to learn the name. The desk began to rattle. The shelves shook. A roar built from beneath like fire waking up. Miss Ivers stepped into the circle. They said I killed them, she whispered, but they begged me to teach them, even after the bell rang, even after the world moved on. Mason backed up. His phone buzzed. No signal, no time. He turned, bolted for the stairs. The exit wasn't there anymore. Only black, only ash. The lower room began to collapse inward, walls folding like paper. Mason ran blind, stumbling through the smoke, the children's voices now screaming in unison. You can't leave again. He found a crack of light, pushed through, and somehow, he was outside again. He didn't look back. He made it to his car, shaking, covered in soot. He drove straight to the sheriff's office and tried to tell them everything. They didn't believe him. Of course they didn't. But something strange happened. That night, the old schoolhouse burned again. No lightning, no kids nearby, just fire out of nowhere. By the time anyone arrived, it was nothing but smoke and ash. They say it's gone for good now, but Mason knows better. 2 weeks later, he moved to Michigan. He never talked about it again. But on the last night in Pine Grove, someone slid an envelope under his motel door. Inside was the class photo. Only this time, Mason was in it, standing in the back row, smiling. And next to him, Nora, eyes wide, staring straight at whoever was still watching.